The defense in the Karmelo Anthony trial is waving the white flag after a series of disastrous witnesses, and we could get a verdict as soon as today. I'm Amber Duke, the editor-in-chief for the Daily Caller, and the Karmelo Anthony trial in the fatal stabbing of Austin Metcalf has captured the nation's attention. The stabbing took place at a track meet in Frisco, Texas. Anthony, who attends Centennial High School, was said to have gone over to the track tent for the Memorial High School track team. There, Austin Metcalf and his friends asked Karmelo Anthony to leave multiple times. He refused, and when Metcalf tried to give him a little shove, get him out of the tent, Karmelo Anthony responded by pulling a knife out of his backpack and stabbing Austin Metcalf fatally in the heart. Now, because Karmelo Anthony is black and Austin Metcalf is white, this suddenly became a story about racial tension. People who were defending Karmelo Anthony alleged that he was only asked to leave the tent because he's black, that perhaps Austin Metcalf was being racist, and that the rush to judgment and the assumption that he had murdered Austin Metcalf was also due to his race. On the other side, people who believe Karmelo Anthony absolutely committed murder were saying that everyone would agree on this case if it weren't for the fact that Karmelo Anthony was a black man. Well, the trial's been going on for the past couple of weeks, and there's been a lot of interesting developments. First, jury selection. The jury ended up being made up of several white folks as well as some minorities, but no black people. The reason why, according to public reporting, is that all of the potential black jurors had expressed some kind of bias. They said, for example, that they couldn't put a brother in jail, while others said that they didn't want to see this young man spend the rest of his life in prison. Then we get into the trial itself. Video and audio are completely banned from the courtroom, so everything we know is coming from a small handful of court reporters who have been tweeting and writing articles about what's going on the inside. The prosecution went first, of course, and they called 21 witnesses, including multiple students who were in the tent that day when Austin Metcalf was stabbed. And these witnesses painted a pretty clear picture about who was at fault. Several of those witnesses directly accused Anthony of escalating the confrontation, saying that he was launching expletives at the Memorial track players who asked him to leave, refused to get out of the tent, and repeatedly reached into his backpack while essentially threatening the track runners. One witness recalled that Anthony said to them, "You're not going to move me, you're a bitch." Another witness recounted, "Karmelo put his hand in the bag and said 5 times, 'Touch me and see what happens.' Austin said he's not going to touch this guy, he was calm." And when the prosecution directly asked a 16-year-old witness, "Was this self-defense or murder?" the witness replied, "This was murder." Then it was the defense's turn, and they tried to soften this picture that was emerging of Karmelo Anthony's actions that day. They included testimony from people who noted that Anthony was smaller than Austin Metcalf, said that he was crying after the fatal stabbing, saying, "I told Austin not to touch me," and also claimed that he was invited into the tent by a student that he knew. But the defense's arguably most important witness crumbled under cross-examination. This witness originally claimed that Karmelo Anthony had been surrounded by a swarm of Memorial High School track team members before the fatal stabbing. He effectively alleged that these people were going to jump Karmelo Anthony, and so he had no choice but to act in self-defense. This, of course, would have massively helped the defense, but it completely fell apart when the prosecution showed video of the incident. This witness, it turned out, wasn't even in the tent. He was actually on the football field and had his back turned to the tent when the stabbing unfolded. The prosecution asked the witness, "When you and I met, you told me you thought that Anthony being surrounded was before the stabbing." "I thought it was as the stabbing was happening," the witness replied. The prosecution countered, "You know you're wrong." "Yes, sir," the witness admitted. Monday's proceedings closed with a dramatic final turn. Court broke for lunch around 11:15 a.m., and they were supposed to be back at 12:30, but people weren't actually called back into the courtroom until about 2:19 p.m. Rumors swirled about what could possibly be happening. Was the defense going for a last-ditch effort plea deal? Were they trying to decide whether or not Karmelo Anthony would testify in his own defense? Those rumors only escalated when some of the first people invited back into the courtroom were in fact Karmelo Anthony's parents. But when the court session finally resumed, we heard that the defense was resting its case. Closing arguments would take place Tuesday morning, and then the jury would deliberate. So the prosecution called dozens of witnesses, the defense called a small handful, the prosecution had direct witnesses who were in the tent that day, the defense went mostly the character witness route. We could be looking at a verdict as soon as today or even tomorrow. I'm curious your thoughts. Based on everything we know about what's happening inside the courtroom, what does the jury decide? Let me know your thoughts below.